Noun case. In this chapter, we're going to address something called the construct relationship, or the construct relation. But before we talk about that, we need to talk briefly about noun cases. Now, what cases are markings on nouns to indicate the function of the noun in a sentence. So you would add bits to a noun. It's some way that you change the word itself to indicate whether it's a subject or an object or a possessive or something like that. German and Russian have lots of cases, and they use them throughout on all their different nouns, including personal names. So a proper name will change according to whether it is used as a subject or an object. We don't have that in English. In English, though, we have it in a couple of places. Just a couple of places left where you see cases. And one is the personal pronouns. So let me use that as an example so you understand what this is about. So we have he in English, right? He is what we use when we talk about, when we want to use the third person masculine personal pronoun in the subject. He hit the ball. But if we want to say Tom hit him, we don't say Tom hit he. We want to say him in the direct object, then we have to go him, use him. And if we want to talk about possession, we say his. It's his ball, not he ball or him ball. Okay, so we have the word changes according to the function in the sentence. Subject or nominative, direct object or accusative, and possession, which is one form of genitive. In the plural, we have this too. We have they, right? They, and then we have them, and we have their, as in the EIR form of there. Now in the feminine, we have she. I want to fill this chart out so we can compare it with the Hebrew one. She hit the ball. He loves her. Her ball. So notice that in the feminine, third person singular, the accusative and the genitive are the same. In the masculine, we have different forms for each. Here, these are the same. We have no gender we have no feminine distinct form in the plural. You, second person now, so we have you hit the ball, she loves you. So here, the nominative and the accusative are the same form, but in the possessive we have a different one, or the genitive. Your ball. We don't say you ball. And again, there's actually no distinction in number or gender in the second person English, as we looked at before. In the first person, we have I. I went to the store. She loves me. Okay, not she loves I. And it's my ball, not me ball, or eyeball. Well, eyeball means something else, right? We in the plural, and us in the accusative plural, first person. And our is the possessive. It's our ball. So, here's some cases in English, some noun cases. In Hebrew, if you remember, when we dealt with the independent personal pronouns, we had, what was it here again? He is who, he, ata, at, we don't have that in English, ani. And we just had the one form going down here. And that's because we only have the nominative form. In fact, independent personal pronouns in Hebrew are only used as a subject. If you want to use pronouns in the other cases, then you do them a different way. We'll come to that later. They're actually suffixes. So, here we have an example of some cases in English, just so you understand what they are. And in Hebrew, we don't have them here in the personal pronouns. Now, one more example in English are the relative pronouns. We have who went to the store. I'll go down here to the genitive. We have whose, right? Whose ball is it? So these are interrogatives or relative pronouns. What do we do for the direct object? He loves who, he loves whom. It used to be whom. But increasingly now, these days, people are not saying whom anymore. So whom is being lost, and it's becoming the same as the nominative here. People are using just who. And this is what happens in language. Case endings drop, other sorts of inflections change and drop. It tends to simplify over time, language does. And we see this happening right now in English, and this is what happened in Hebrew as well. Hebrew used to have case markings for these cases, for nominative, subject, accusative, direct object, or usually direct object, and the genitive, which can be a number of things, including possessive. What they were, used to have, for melech, for instance, you would have mal, what was it here, malku, and over here you had an a ending, and for the genitive you had a short I ending. And in the plural it was a long U, and then these were long I's for both of these, the accusative and for the genitive. But all that's lost. You may see it a little bit in some names, remnants here and there, but for the most part there are no case endings left in Hebrew. And if you want to know more about this, you can turn to Walt Keel Connor's textbook, Introduction to Biblical Hebrew Syntax, on page 126. And let's see, Walt Keel, I'll spell that out here. Walt Key O'Connor, C-O-N-N, what is it, O-R? O-R. A little apostrophe here, I guess. So page 126, they discuss cases in Hebrew and look at the historical linguistics of this. And they say that it was during the last centuries of the second millennium that the case system disappeared from Hebrew. So why am I even talking about cases if we don't have them in Hebrew? The reason I'm talking about them is because we still want to talk about nouns in terms of these categories, nominative, accusative, and genitive, even though they aren't marked by cases. We don't have the case markings anymore, but it's still useful to think about these nouns in these groupings because nouns function different ways, even though they aren't marked in the same way, or marked like they used to be. So let me talk briefly about the three cases that we still have, at least functionally, in Hebrew. One is, I've already mentioned them, the nominative. It's naming, I'll just abbreviate it here. And generally the nominative is synonymous with the subject. It's used for the subject, okay, subject of a sentence. And it's not indicated by case anymore, as I've just said, but it's indicated by position and by the context in the sentence. Accusative is our second one. These words come from the Latin grammars. So this meant to name, accusative meant to call to account, from accusare or something to that effect. And generally in Hebrew this is the direct object. It's indicated again like the subject by position and context, unless the direct object is definite, in which case it can and usually is marked then by ate or et. Remember, we dealt with this just recently. This is not a case marking. A case marking would be a marking that you would have just directly as part of the word. This is something you add, sort of tack it onto the word, but it's not really part of the word. So we wouldn't want to call this a case marking, but it's one way of distinguishing or indicating that you have an accusative. So we have nominative, which is really the subject, accusative, direct object, and then genitive. I'll spell this one right out. Genitive. If you've taken classical Greek or Koine Greek, or German or Russian, some of those languages, as a second language, if you studied the grammar of those languages, all these categories will be familiar to you, or Latin, of course. But I do this here for the benefit of those who haven't had those other languages. Genitive comes from the Latin to bear. Now I gave you some examples. I said his is a genitive, his ball, or whose ball, or her ball, their ball, our ball, my ball. Those are all examples of possession. Now possession is a subset of the genitive. It's one type of genitive. The way to think of genitive is not simply as possession. That's how people often think of genitive as simply possession, at least when they first encounter this. But it's more than that. The way to think about it is it describes. The genitive describes or qualifies other words. And at the end of the last module in this chapter, I'll go through 5 or 6 different uses of the genitive, and we'll talk about them as we go as well. But just remember that this is more than just possession. Now it's indicated in 2 ways. One are nouns that follow prepositions are said to be in the genitive. So if a noun follows a preposition, it is said to be in the genitive. And secondly, and this is the one we're going to deal with in this whole chapter, if the noun is in something that's called a construct relationship. Construct relation. Construct relation. Then it is in the genitive. So, Hebrew does not have case endings anymore, but we still have case in terms of its function. Nominative, accusative, and genitive. And genitive is what we're going to deal with in this chapter in something called, at least one type of genitive, the major type, called the construct.